Hey everybody, Sam Amico with Hoops Wire Live on 330 to go. We are back for another season. I'd like to say third season, but I think that first season we really only started in February. So, and as usual, I'm unprepared. So we're picking up right where I left off last year. Couple of programming notes. The Cavaliers, number one, are back in training camp down in Saratoga, somewhere in Florida. I don't know the name of the city, but they're down there for this week. They return home, I believe, Saturday, and then we have a preseason game Tuesday night at Rocket Arena against the Chicago Bulls. So they're already started again, which sounds strange because we have the Browns going on, right? Kind of, I guess. That's what you call it. And the Browns have already had a quarterback change before the Cavs even tipped off the preseason. That's the Cleveland Browns for you, right? Guardians, what a run. What a fantastic run. It's too bad that it ended. But the fact that the Guardians were 15 and a half out in July and even got to the postseason, won the division, was fairly amazing. And I think from September to the start of October, this Guardians team we just witnessed will go down in Cleveland baseball lore. That was amazing. 11 games back in September. The first team ever to do that, play in October. So you probably knew all that already, but that's what I'm here for, to repeat stuff you already know. Anyway, it's great to be back at the 330 to go studios here in the lovely 33. Am I allowed to say the town that the studios are in? Steve kind of gave me the but anyway, lovely Cuyahoga Falls if you need to find us. So a couple of programming notes. I will be back this year on the Big Play Network Full Court Cleveland show with Booby Gibson. He has told me, I'll be full-time this year, meaning he will be there for every show. Last year I teased him because he wasn't there for every show. But I guess when you're a professional athlete, you have, or at least former professional athlete, being pulled in a lot of different directions. Our first guest on that show, that will be next week. No, I'm sorry, the week of October 14th. Our first guest on that show with Booby Gibson and myself will be Cavaliers guard Craig Porter Jr., who is potentially going to play a pretty decent role, even more than previous seasons. Craig Porter Jr., of course, now in his third year. I'll touch on that in a second, but he will be our first guest on that show. And Monday, I filled in for Mark Price on the Mark Price podcast. I told Mark, finally someone's bringing some life to this role. And he didn't really laugh. But regardless, I thought it was funny. And if you go to Apple Music or Spotify, just look up the Mark Price for 3 podcast, or you can go to hoopswire.com. I put the podcast on there. Myself and Aaron Conrad, who's been on this show before, is hosting the Mark Price podcast as usual. So we talk a lot about the Cavs and the NBA this week, as everything is now tipping off. There was actually a preseason game last night. If you're watching this live, Friday, there was a preseason game Thursday. NBA preseason game was the Sixers and the Knicks. And I actually looked up the box score, and it was basically like a G League game as far as the people who played. So I wouldn't expect too much differently from the Cavs preseason game Tuesday against the Bulls. I'm sure that, Donovan Mitchell will play a little bit. Jared Allen, Evan Mobley, they're not going to play long, I don't think, in that first preseason game. So either way, it is at Rocket Arena, the first of 4 preseason games for the Cavs. Now, training camp, here's a few things to keep in mind. Darius Garland's probably going to miss the first month of the season. If you remember last year, obviously was compromised in the playoffs with that broken toe. He had surgery after the year in June on that foot, and it will keep him out. It seems like he's going a little bit, but they're just not going to push it. don't expect the Cavs start 15-0 this year for that reason, like they did last season under Kenny Atkinson. We're going to see a lot of when Garland comes back. Before that, we'll see a lot of Lonzo Ball. We'll see a lot of Craig Porter Jr. I think this year we're going to see a lot of Jalen Tyson, the first-round pick last summer of 2024. Jalen Tyson is probably going to fill in those Isaac Okoro minutes. Of course, Isaac was traded to the Bulls for Lonzo Ball. A lot of this stuff you probably already know, but Max Strus is probably going to be out till close to the All-Star break in February. So they're going to have some things to figure out. Max had a foot injury as well. So it's called a Jones fracture. For those of you who are into medicine, that's kind of a more serious type of deal. So he'll be out till probably close to the All-Star break, or at least late January. And I suspect DeAndre Hunter is going to start in that role. As many people thought he should have last year. He liked coming off the bench. He said at Cavs Media Day, which I was at Monday, that he's kind of ready to start. So I think that the Cavs are probably going to roll out on opening night, everybody healthy at this point, who's healthy right now, of Lonzo Ball, Donovan Mitchell, DeAndre Hunter at small forward, Evan Mobley, and Jared Allen. Now, that said, Mitchell could end up playing point and Sam Merrill starting, and Lonzo Ball coming off the bench, as they kind of want to ease him into things. He's only played 35 games the past 3 years combined. So, he had that knee thing that cost him 2 years. And then last year he played 35 games, hurt his wrist, and was out for the season. So that's a big key for the Cavs this year, if you're asking me. And since this is my show, you are asking me. Or maybe you just hit cancel or whatever it is, unsubscribe. Steve doesn't like me putting those thoughts in your head. But I think that the big key this year is Lonzo Ball, who they picked up, obviously, in the trade. Larry Nance Jr., who's back, and I have a Larry Nance Jr. story that I will share, and it involves Akron U football, which I'm going to tomorrow, for those of you who want my autograph. And that's never been requested once. So maybe if you go to the football game tomorrow, you could come up to me and ask, and I'd be happy to deliver. But Larry Nance Jr., Lonzo Ball, they stay healthy. It can give the Cavs 45, 50 regular season games and stay healthy in the playoffs. I think the Cavs upgraded their roster this year, this offseason. Thomas Bryant, to me, who they picked up as a free agent, kind of a journeyman backup center, but it just gives them everything they need. If you remember last year, the Cavs had to platoon Jared Allen and Evan Mobley, meaning one of them always had to stay on the floor at all times. Thomas Bryant, who they picked up in free agency at the end of last month or middle of last month or whatever, he gives the Cavs that type of backup playable center so that the Cavs can rest Jared Allen and Evan Mobley at the same time. The thing about Thomas Bryant is, yes, he's been a journeyman, but he does all the little things well. And he hits threes. As a 6'10 guy, he can step out and hit threes, but he's willing and likes to mix it up underneath. So anybody who says the Cavs had to get more physical this offseason, they did that without question. Thomas Bryant brings physicality. Larry Nance Jr. still mixes it up underneath, brings physicality. He's not super physical, but he's more than what they had off the bench last year in terms of physicality. Lonzo Ball, when healthy, is one of the most physical point guards in the NBA. One of the best. If he's healthy, he's top 2 or 3 backcourt defenders in the NBA, Lonzo Ball. He will keep the ball moving. He's a very efficient player. He doesn't make turnovers. He doesn't mind when you get physical with him. He embraces that. If you remember last year against the Pacers in the playoffs, what happened? The Pacers got unbelievably physical with the Cavs guards. Darius Garland was compromised with a broken toe. And, Ty Jerome, as incredible of a year as he had, did not handle that physicality well. Lonzo Ball, that's his game. Go ahead and bring it, he says. So, anyway, I think that the Cavs got more physical as Kobe Altman, president of basketball operations, said after the season. We need to get more physical. And I think they went out and did that. And now that Jared Allen's going to have some relief, Evan Mobley, and there's a lot, I see on my Facebook page or on my Twitter feed or whatever on the website, the comments, people don't like Jared Allen because he's not physical enough. Well, Jared Allen can be free to play his game. And if you need to get more physical, you bring in Thomas Bryant. You can bring in Larry Nance Jr. And look, Jared Allen's a walking double-double. There's a lot of things he does really well. Shot blocking. He can score the basketball without needing the ball. He can get you 14 points and you don't even realize he took a shot, because it all comes within the flow or off the break or whatever. Jared Allen does so many things very well. Physical play is not his strength. So the Cavs went out and got a backup center who's physical. They got Larry Nance Jr., who's more physical. And in the backcourt, Lonzo Ball. And I think this year we're going to see Jalen Tyson more. And he will certainly, his game is very energy, physical oriented. So that's the key word for the Cavs going into this season. As we know, it's a marathon, right? I mean, preseason starts Tuesday. And then you have, the Cavs plan is to be going until June, which is the finals. So I wrote like 2 or 3 stories for Media Day, and then I walked away thinking, I've got like 9 months of this left. What am I doing? I'm not going to write 3 stories a day. However, if you do go to hoopswire.com, you'll see we have usually 2-3 stories on the homepage on the Cavs a day. And that leads me to my next story. So as far as the expectations for the Cavs, I expect them to win the East. I think that, the Knicks are going to be a major challenger with their new coach, Mike Brown, who everybody in Cleveland knows pretty well. And the Orlando Magic, if they stay healthy, they are a matchup issue with the Cavs. The Magic are an excellent defensive team. They could not shoot from the outside. Well, they went out and traded for Desmond Bane from the Memphis Grizzlies, who's a great outside shooter. I see the East, at least in the regular season, shaping up. The Cavs, number 1, Knicks, number 2, Magic, number 3. You never know what the Bucks and the Sixers are going to do. Those are veteran teams, but, Sixers can't stay healthy. I don't know how great of a fit they are. Of course, Sixers president of basketball operations, Daryl Morey, is a Medina Highland grad. So they have some 3-3-0 to go-ness to them. And now that Daryl Morey's running them, I'll stop comparing them to the Browns, because I've always said the Sixers are like the Browns of the NBA. They just can't get out of their own way. I guess I won't stop comparing them to the Browns. And then you also have in the Eastern Conference the Atlanta Hawks, who I suspect are going to be extremely improved with Kristaps Porzingis. Losing my voice right in the middle of the show of episode 1 of season 3. So I'm not really sure how long season 3 will go. Anyway, we'll get this one in. So that's how I see the East shaking out. Obviously a long way between now and June, or at least April, when the regular season ends. As far as the story I was going to share, that involves Akron U football and Larry Nance Jr. And I also ran into Steve Bader from 330 to go. I don't know if he wants me giving out his last name or city, but guess what? We've done that both already on episode 1 of season 3 of Hoops Wire Live. If there's anything else more you need about Steve, like a social security number, credit card, I can provide that in episode 2. In fact, that'd be a good teaser, I think. At any rate, I saw Steve at the Akron U football game. I saw Larry Nance Jr. Larry Nance Jr., of course, I went to that game because my career started in Wyoming. The first team I ever covered was the University of Wyoming football and basketball. And Wyoming always hold a special place in my heart. I was out there 6 years. Larry Nance Jr., of course, went to college there. They were the only Division I school, University of Wyoming, to offer him a basketball scholarship out of Revere High School. And now he's in the NBA. So I ran into Larry. I've known him since he was a kid. And now he's early 30s, which is terrifying thought that Larry Nance Jr. is in his early 30s. But I saw him at the game. He was all decked out in his Wyoming gear. I had my Wyoming hat that the athletic director of the University of Wyoming sent me probably within the last 3 or 4 years. And I saw Larry and I told him my plans for this year. I said, look, I'm glad you're back, but I'm probably not going to cover the team like I have been, going to games, going to practices. I'm probably not going to do dribbles after every game. That was my plan, was to step back, not necessarily on the Cavs, but on the way that I approach my coverage of them. And Larry kind of talked me out of it. He was very nice, of course, and I don't think that he cared one way or the other. In fact, I can almost assure you, he just said, "We'll miss you." And he sounded like a kid when he said it. And so it made those three words make me rethink everything. So much to the Cavs' chagrin, I will be back for every game that I can get to, which is going to be 90% of the home games. I might even go on a road trip, my usual trip that I go to Detroit. Sometimes I go to DC. A lot of it depends on how they're doing. There's Larry there in his Wyoming gear. And you know what? I gotta say these are my two favorite college football teams. I kid you not. The University of Wyoming and Akron. Either way, I came out a winner, whoever won that game. Of course, Wyoming won 10-0. And of course, Wyoming's coach, I don't know if you know this, as a basketball guy, I know this. And I'm not a football guy, even though I love football. Now I'm just talking in circles, which is basically how this entire show usually goes. The Wyoming coach is a former Mount Union linebacker, Wyoming head coach, and I cannot remember his name. But so there's a lot of ties here. And I was surprised to see the Wyoming section had so many fans there. But I really, really loved being there with this mix of Wyoming and Akron fans, and seeing Larry there in his Wyoming gear. It was really cool. So, in fact, when I was in Wyoming, I worked with a sports writer. Now, keep in mind, I left in 2000, I believe, was my last year in Wyoming. The year 2000, I left, and I worked with a sports writer who was a great guy. And sure enough, I'm sitting on the Wyoming section there behind Larry Nance Jr., and I see that sports writer from 25 years ago still covering Wyoming football and basketball, which I think is really awesome. And there was actually a few people affiliated with Wyoming football program when I was in Wyoming 25 years ago, 30 years ago, that are still there and still affiliated with the program. So had I not gotten married and gotten a really cool job covering the NBA, I can almost guarantee you I would still be in Wyoming. That's how much I love it. So the great news is, as far as I can tell, Wyoming will always be there, so I can always go back. But anyway, so Larry Jr., whether he wanted to or not, talked me, just just the way he said, "We'll miss you," was enough for me, because I had been on the fence about how I was going to approach the Cavs this year. And I'm happy to say I'm all the way back. I'm all the way in. And obviously I'm in with the show, and I'm obviously going to be in with covering the team pretty much nightly basis. So this will be year number 17, I believe, 17 or 18. I don't know. I've been doing it way too long. Many of you will say, yes, you've been doing it way too long. Would you please go away? But anyway, so as far as the Cavaliers go, we have so much more to cover and discuss as the season goes on. Right now, we'll get a little preview of them in their preseason game. I'm so excited, because when the season's over, for like the first month after that, I kind of look, HoopsWire's 24/7. I'm constantly going on this every day, 7 days a week, at least an hour or two, usually 3 or 4 every day. There's no, you've got to stay plugged in. You've got to keep the foot on the gas. I mean, so during those dog days of August, that's when I start like, when's the season get here? We've got football first, and then we go to football, and then we go to the NBA, and it seems like that August to October 1st stretch, man, Amico is bored. He's annoying everybody, well, more than usual, and I really wait, and so that the season gets here, and I'm like, all right, I'm ready to go, ready to get back into my routine, and back into going to Cavs games, covering the team, and I couldn't imagine. I'm glad Larry Jr. put that thought in my head because, to be honest, I couldn't imagine like not doing that. So we'll see. I think it's going to work out well. Hoopswire.com, by the way, has done very well during the offseason and is continuing to do well during the season or during the very early portion of training camp. So thanks to everybody who does visit the site a lot. That's very helpful. And of course, I'll have the show with Booby Gibson, as I mentioned. Here was one other thing I thought about talking about on the show, because I thought this last night, which just shows you how much I need to get out. But Ohio was the birthplace of football, Northeast Ohio, right? So why are the teams here so bad? And again, I love Akron U. I love Kent. Clearly, I love the Browns. What's happened? We invented the sport right here. And I'm not ripping on anybody. I'm just saying that we've struggled for long enough, I think. Okay. I see positive signs from both the Akron and Kent programs. I do. I follow them closely. Football, basketball, you name it. Baseball, I even follow. The women's teams. But as far as the football teams, I see some positive signs. I mean, Kent, you've got Florida State and Oklahoma in back-to-back games. You can't judge a team by that. But, I see strides. So I'm just wondering what's going on. This is the birthplace of football. Akron had one of the first pro teams, right? Akron Pros. I love that nickname, by the way. Leaves no doubt what they do. and yeah. And I think Akron beat Ohio State in their first football game. It was like 12-6. It was before they kicked extra points, so it's been a while. But and John Heisman. John Heisman, the name of the trophy, Heisman Trophy, was the coach at Akron. I don't know. I hope that they get it turned around at some point. Obviously, the Cleveland Browns remain a mess. You could say they should be 0-4. You could say they should be 2-2. Could have won that Bengals game if they made the kick. So anyway, that's my football take. I love college and the Browns, and I support the teams here. So don't take that the wrong way. But I'm just wondering and waiting. Come on. One of you three have to pick it up. Okay? Preferably the Browns. Ohio State, though. Ohio State has a good shot at winning back-to-back national championships. So I follow all the teams in Ohio. Ohio State, Toledo, Bowling Green, Miami of Ohio. That's probably not why you came to this Cavs show, to listen to me rattle off the Division I schools in Ohio, but here we are. So on that note, I think there's a lot of positives about the Cavs. they're going to have this cloud over them all year, which is, well, nothing matters unless you do it in the playoffs. But again, you can't base everything on what happened in last year's playoffs because they're a different team. different roster, different depth, and I think different attitude going into the season. And we will have a better attitude on this show next week. So thanks so much for joining Hoops Wire Live. Please visit hoopswire.com. And as always, we will see you on 330 to go. See you next time.